What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. We got to talk about Shedeur Sanders getting his first win as a starter in the NFL. The Browns took down the Raiders. There's a huge change that I think was pretty noticeable about the Browns offense and the way that the Raiders defense was playing them. We'll dive into that. Ben Johnson has officially broken the unbreakable curse that has doomed the Chicago Bears franchise for over 40 years plus. The AFC North, the familiar faces that you've grown accustomed to seeing on the sidelines in this division, there's about to be some catastrophic changes coming. JJ McCarthy, man, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. And if you ever played football before, you would know that it doesn't take too long to figure out the guys who can play and the guys who just don't have it. And the writing is already on the wall for JJ McCarthy. The Rams are about to become the next dynasty in the NFL. I got a few reasons why. And the Dallas Cowboys, hey, man, look, as much as we've shitted on the Cowboys over these last couple of years, Jerry Jones has been in his bag these last couple of months, man. He's going all in. He's trying to do whatever it takes to hoist that Lombardi trophy one last time before he isn't able to take another breath on this earth. We got a lot to dive into. If you live, eat, breathe, and die football, you have come to the right place. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you can get your daily football fix in if you're a football junkie like me. And let's stop wasting time. Let's dive into it. The rejected shall be respected. How about Shedeur Sanders starting out his NFL career 1-0 as a starter as he helped the Browns take down the Raiders in their win? And Shedeur Sanders wasn't anything that was out of this world in his first start, but he was definitely way better than what Dillon Gabriel has been over these last couple of months. Shedeur Sanders was averaging 10 yards per completion compared to Dillon Gabriel, who is averaging a measly 4.9 yards per completion. And it's pretty evident with Shedeur Sanders starting at quarterback for the Browns, defenses respect this offense a lot more, because Shedeur is going to actually push the football downfield. He had two throws that went for over 20, 30 yards plus. Those were the most explosive plays that the Browns have had in the passing game since the start of this season when they had Joe Flacco in that quarterback. Dillon Gabriel doesn't have the arm that Shedeur has. He's not halfway the athlete that Shedeur is. The Browns were wasting a lot of time trying to convince themselves that Dillon Gabriel, drafting him over Shedeur Sanders, was justified. They were doing so much politicking, and if they would have started Shedeur a lot earlier, maybe they still would have had a shot of making it to the playoffs. But they're moving forward with Shedeur as a starter, as they should, because the Browns are just a better team with him playing quarterback. Now, is he going to end up becoming the long-term answer at quarterback that the Browns have been looking for? That's to be decided. We still have a lot of games left to be played. I want to see how he looks against a better team and a 49ers defense that has been extremely well coached this year by one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL, and Robert Saleh. And you know that Robert Saleh is going to throw a lot of exotic looks at Shedeur. He's going to send a lot of pressure at Shedeur Sanders. I thought for the most part, Shedeur's first start was okay. I don't think it was great. I do think that there were a lot of plays that Shedeur could have made that the team just wasn't able to come through for him. Like when you had the stupid fumble by Jerry Jeudy, I still need to see a lot more before I start crowning Shedeur Sanders. And I'm not a Shedeur Sanders hater. You guys know this by now. I don't have to waste any time explaining how much I believe in Shedeur. But the internet is coming out with all these conspiracy theories. Kevin Stefanski was sabotaging Shedeur. He took him off the field when they got inside the goal line. He went Wildcat twice with Quinshon Judkins. You can never go wrong running a Wildcat with that monster at running back named the Judkins Machine. Quinshon Judkins is the best rookie running back in the NFL. He's better than Amarion Hampton. He's better than Ashton Jeanty. And yes, I'm biased because I got him on my fantasy team. So you won't see me complaining about Shedeur being subbed out for Quinshon Judkins. And Kevin Stefanski is a run-first coach. Even when Dylan Gabriel was in that quarterback, he was still running the air out of the football, especially once they got inside the 20. You don't want to put a lot on a rookie quarterback's shoulders. When they're playing good football, you want to keep their confidence high. If Shedeur is going to succeed in Cleveland, then the Browns are going to have to make sure that they do a good job protecting him, making sure that they limit the amount of mistakes that he makes, and making sure that he still stays confident. And you don't want to ask Shedeur this early into his career, still trying to get his feet wet in the NFL, still trying to get acclimated to the speed of the NFL game by asking him to go out there and throw 30, 40 times to win you a game, unless it's truly necessary. The Browns had the ability to play complimentary football, and they don't need Shedeur to put on that cape and be Superman. As a matter of fact, I think what hinders a lot of young rookie quarterbacks is when they go into a situation and they're expected to put the team on their back. I feel like that's unfair and it's unrealistic to expect for Shedeur Sanders to have to do that when he's only one start in. I want to see more gradual improvement out of Shedeur Sanders throughout the course of this season. Hell, the NFL scriptwriters were cooking. When they came out with the schedule, they put the Browns and the Titans together in week 14. They knew that the Browns eventually were going to start Shedeur Sanders and that we were going to get Shedeur versus Cam Ward. This is a matchup that everybody's going to be watching. If you felt like Shedeur was better than Cam Ward, you're either going to be proven right or you're going to be proven wrong in the next couple of weeks. And that's going to be the game that's going to tell me what Shedeur Sanders' career is going to look like, because you're only as good as what your peers are. We always are comparing quarterbacks to who they got drafted with in their respective quarterback classes, who are the other guys who are around their same age range. And Shedeur is going to be compared to Cam Ward because we thought that these were going to be the first two quarterbacks taken off the board. And we get to see them go head to head. Now, you guys know I'm a Miami fan. I love Cam Ward. He's my favorite Hurricane ever. So, of course, I'll give him the edge over Shedeur. I think from the physical attribute standpoint, Cam Ward has a stronger arm. He's a better athlete, but Shedeur is a more accurate passer, a more efficient thrower of the football. And now with the Browns getting Shedeur into some meaningful NFL action, do you find it funny how guys like Isaiah Bond, Harold Fanning, guys that you haven't really heard their names mentioned that often, were finally making plays? It's funny how when you finally have a quarterback that can throw the football more than 5 yards downfield, defenses start respecting your offense. And now when any team goes up against the Browns, they just can't stack 7, 8, 9 guys in the box and go all out on stopping Quinshon Judkins. Now you have to worry about Shedeur Sanders beating you over the top with play action, rolling outside the pocket. Look, I understand why a lot of Shedeur stands feel the way that they feel about Kevin Stefanski. Kevin Stefanski is a solid coach. This dude made it to the playoffs twice with Baker Mayfield and Joe Flacco. He's a two-time coach of the year. He's the most winningest coach that the Browns have had, arguably, in the history of their franchise. He may just be the best head coach they've ever had. And if he was to get fired at the end of this year, teams will be lining up on their knees to hire him. So I think that Shedeur Sanders, contrary to popular belief, is in really good hands with Kevin Stefanski. Kevin Stefanski isn't trying to sabotage Shedeur Sanders. Do you not know how hard it is to get a head coaching job in the NFL? It's a lot harder to become a head coach in this league than it is to become a player. And you can become a head coach, get fired, and maybe not get another opportunity again. It takes guys 10, 15 years, maybe 20 years of grinding to finally get a head coaching opportunity. So you got to be a little bit ignorant to say that Kevin Stefanski is out there intentionally trying to sabotage Shedeur Sanders. The NFL is a business at the end of the day. And yes, people's egos may sometimes make them a little bit hesitant to make decisions that they should have made a lot earlier, but everybody still is trying to win. And at the end of the day, Kevin Stefanski isn't going to sabotage his livelihood for the sake of trying to make Shedeur Sanders look bad. I heard Skip Bayless say that he's starting him against the 49ers because he wants the 49ers to humble him. That's nonsense. Kevin Stefanski wants to win. Kevin Stefanski still wants to prove that he's good enough to remain the head coach of the Browns. And if Shedeur Sanders keeps playing the way that he has and he keeps on developing, who does that make look good? Kevin Stefanski. And imagine if Shedeur Sanders does end up turning into the golden boy that we all expect him to become with the last name on the back of his jersey. All that does is give Kevin Stefanski more prestige, especially when a lot of folks inside the NFL, from executives, GMs, and scouts, weren't really that high on Shedeur. And if Kevin Stefanski is able to win a few games with Shedeur this year, then next year, let's say they possibly make it to the playoffs, you're looking at a guy who probably ends up winning his third Coach of the Year award, and he gets a lot of kudos for helping develop a guy that most people thought were only good enough to be a backup. It's been believed for a very long time that the Chicago Bears were cursed as a franchise. They have been unable to develop quarterbacks. They couldn't build a competent offense, and they've been unable to sustain long-term success. But in comes Ben Johnson, who in less than 1 year has broke the unbreakable Chicago Bears curse. He now has properly developed a young quarterback, something that nobody thought the Chicago Bears were ever capable of being able to do. Matt Eberflus last year thought that drafting Caleb Williams, getting a generational talent with the first overall pick, will automatically save his job without giving him any proper coaching. Ben Johnson isn't saying, hey, Caleb Williams, go put us on your back, go carry us to wins. Ben Johnson is saying, no, our team, Caleb, will carry you. Our team will help you win. We're not asking you for you to help us win. We're asking you to play good enough within the confines of our system to allow our team to help take some of that pressure off your back to where you don't have to feel the need to be Superman. Ben Johnson has done an incredible job of supporting Caleb Williams with great play calling, a really good offensive line, a top 3 rushing attack, and he's given him a lot of weapons to throw the football to. Ben Johnson, in 1 year, has done what a lot of people in the NFL thought wasn't possible. And before this season started, I told you guys that the Chicago Bears were going to win the NFC North. And I had them finishing with the best record in the NFC. Now, I probably whiffed on them having the best record in the NFC. But Ben Johnson, when he was with the Detroit Lions, they were averaging 33 points per game. Now they're averaging 25 points per game. That's nearly a whole touchdown that the Lions have lost with the departure of Ben Johnson. And you see how in shambles the Lions offense looks right now, with Dan Campbell taking over the play calling, with how ineffective Jared Goff has been at times. That shows you how good of a coach Ben Johnson is. And we all know that Ben Johnson is an incredibly bright offensive mind. But what's even more impressive about the job he's done so far in Chicago is how he has changed the culture. I view Ben Johnson more than just a bright offensive mind. He's a culture builder. And normally you don't have great access in those guys, great tacticians, great schemers who are really good at both. Most of the times you have guys that are good at scheming guys open. You don't really think of them so much as being great culture builders, but being around Dan Campbell, you can obviously tell the impact that has had on Ben Johnson's coaching style. He holds everybody on the Bears team in the organization to a certain standard. He's extremely detail-oriented. The difference between the elite coaches, the average and below average coaches in the NFL are their attentions to details. The bad coaches constantly aren't able to get the little things right. Like Matt Eberflus with the awful clock management that we saw him have on Thanksgiving against, the Commanders last year. Look at Ben Johnson. You don't see those same issues. You don't see a team that's finding ways to lose as what they were in years past. You're finding ways to win under Ben Johnson. It's not always pretty. Sometimes it may damn near give you a heart attack, but this is what separates great coaches from the rest of the bunch. The small attentions to details. When training camp was happening a few months ago, there were reports about how Ben Johnson was constantly cussing out his offense because they couldn't even get the play in right. They couldn't snap the ball properly. They couldn't get lined up correctly, to the point when he benched his entire first team offense. The guy is a football savant because he puts emphasis on the small things. And the small things, when you add them up, they turn into big things when you combine them all together. Imagine how good the Bears are going to be 2-3 years from now when Caleb Williams reaches his ceiling and he does end up becoming that second coming of Patrick Mahomes that he was hyped up to be. The Bears are going to be in the Super Bowl conversation for years to come with Ben Johnson as the head coach. This isn't a Matt Nagy one-off feel-good story. Matt Nagy's success mainly came off the back of Vic Fangio's defense. When Vic Fangio left the Chicago Bears for the Broncos head coaching job, you saw a drastic drop-off. That defense was carrying that team. Mitchell Trubisky was okay. This is the best quarterback play that the Bears have gotten in years? You haven't had a quarterback this good in over 15 years since you went to the NFC Championship game and Jay Cutler was pedaling on the bike on the sidelines. Caleb Williams is about to do everything that nobody thought was possible. Nobody thought you could achieve as a Chicago Bears starting quarterback. The Chicago Bears are one of the longest tenured teams in the NFL. They've been in the NFL since the beginning of this league's creation, and they have yet to have a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards in the season. Caleb Williams is going to change that. Ben Johnson is going to change that. There's just a different energy, a different aura around the Bears now with Ben Johnson as their head coach. This guy knows what it takes to win. He knows what it takes to develop a young quarterback that has all the physical tools in the world to be one of the best in the NFL. And that's why you can believe in the Chicago Bears. That's why I was willing to die on the hill that the Bears would make it to the playoffs this year. Look at how drastically this division has changed. The Bears have had talent. They just haven't had the right coaching. And like we saw with Jim Harbaugh, when he first got hired by the Chargers, he was able to turn around the culture. And that's what Ben Johnson has been able to do. And he's done it instantly. Now, I don't know if you give Ben Johnson coach of the year, because I think if the Jaguars are able to hold on for the rest of the season and they make it to the playoffs, Liam Cohen has to win coach of the year, because there's no way that any other coach in the NFL will be able to win the amount of games that Liam Cohen has in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence as his freaking quarterback. Trevor Lawrence sucks. He just sucks. And for the Jaguars to be in the playoffs in spite of awful quarterback play is a testament to how great of a job Liam Cohen has done in Duval. But Ben Johnson isn't too far off. He's broken what we believed for years to be an unbreakable code, an unbreakable curse when it comes to the Chicago Bears franchise. Their inability to win, their inability to have sustainable long-term success, the inability to build a competent offense that can put a young quarterback in position to succeed. All that has now been gone. It's been erased because the great job that Ben Johnson has done. I was 8 years old when I first started watching the NFL, and that's when I became a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And for 15 years in my life, I've grown accustomed to seeing Mike Tomlin on the sidelines and black and gold attire coaching the Pittsburgh Steelers. Same thing with seeing John Harbaugh on the sidelines and Baltimore Ravens gear coaching up the Ravens. But there's about to be catastrophic change taking place when it comes to who are going to be the head coaches on the sidelines for these two respective organizations. Same thing with the Cincinnati Bengals. The AFC North is a non-factor in the NFL this year. Whoever wins the AFC North is going to be an easy one-and-done playoff team. Doesn't matter if it's the Steelers, doesn't matter if it's the Ravens, doesn't matter if it's somehow the Cincinnati Bengals. This division just isn't good. You have a Ravens team that started this year off phenomenal on offense, but atrocious on defense. But ever since their bye week, ever since Lamar Jackson has come back from his injury, which I don't feel he's truly 100% healed from, the offense has become very shaky, and the defense has been carrying the load. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, we've known for years Mike Tomlin has been able to get it right on offense. And with Aaron Rodgers being injured, us not knowing when he's about to come back, the season's already over because the schedule is way too tough for Mike Tomlin to be able to rattle off a 10-win season to get to the playoffs with him not having a healthy Aaron Rodgers. And even if Aaron Rodgers was healthy right now, with how rocky the offense was still looking, with how up and down Aaron Rodgers has been this year, it looks like another 9-8 season on the horizon for the Steelers. And for the Baltimore Ravens, you getting into the playoffs isn't enough. You came into this year with Super Bowl or bust expectations, and losing in the first round is a fireable offense. And Justina Anderson, I believe that's her name, I apologize if I got it wrong, came out and said that there's a head coach that has been in the NFL for a very long time that is mulling over a change of scenery. And a lot of people are speculating that that guy is Mike Tomlin. But it also could be John Harbaugh. Maybe it's Kevin Stefanski. But either way, I think there's a strong chance that both Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh get fired at the end of this season. For the Steelers, the expectation with you getting Aaron Rodgers was that you would at least win a playoff game. For the Baltimore Ravens, it was Super Bowl or bust, and you're nowhere close to being a Super Bowl caliber football team. And both of these franchises have underachieved for over the last decade. Ever since the Ravens won their Super Bowl, when they had Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, and the boys, they haven't come close since. The Pittsburgh Steelers haven't even sniffed a Super Bowl since they last won it, or when they last were in it 15 years ago against the Green Bay Packers. So I expect to see some very big changes when it comes to who's coaching on the sidelines for the Steelers and the Ravens this year. And it's unfortunate that it's come to this, Because when you think about the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers, outside of, certain affiliations that you have when it comes to when somebody brings up those teams, who's the first players that come to mind? TJ Watt for the Steelers, Lamar for the Ravens, but also the coaches. Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh have been coaching their teams for so long that they remember when their kids were youngins, and now they're full-blown adults. That's how long they've been coaching these teams. And eventually, when you end up being with somebody for a very long time and you end up not being able to reach the expectations, reach the level that you once were able to get to, the relationship starts to sour. And not only are the Steelers and the Ravens the only teams in this division that will be making a head coaching change at the end of this year, but same thing for the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow is coming back, but you want me to believe that Joe Burrow is completely healed from that foot injury that he suffered earlier this year? Because he wasn't supposed to come back until midway in December, and somehow he's coming back like 3 weeks earlier. No, like, he's trying to do whatever he can to save the season. And he's trying to save Zach Taylor, but unfortunately, it won't happen. Zach Taylor, I don't know how he somehow was able to get to a Super Bowl before Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh were able to get to another Super Bowl, but somehow he was able to pull it off. And he's been to 2 AFC championships. And Zach Taylor has had more postseason success in recent history than what Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh have, and he's on the chopping block. So you're about to see some catastrophic changes in the AFC North at the end of this year when it comes to who's coaching on the sidelines. The only guy who's going to be left standing is Kevin Stefanski, only off the face of him pretty much being unfireable, because you can make the argument that Kevin Stefanski is the greatest head coach that the Cleveland Browns have ever had, ever since the guy that they had coaching this team in the 20s, the 30s, and the 40s when they were a dynasty with Otto Graham. So the AFC North, what you grew up watching in this division for so many years, is about to have a bunch of new faces. And it's going to be a little weird to see somebody other than Mike Tomlin coaching the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's going to be weird to see somebody not named John Harbaugh possibly coaching the Baltimore Ravens. The NFL, unlike the NBA, is not player driven. If you were to trade TJ Watt or Lamar Jackson, yeah, you would still root for those guys, whoever they get traded to, but your affiliation will still be with that team. And you also synonymize, I don't know if that's how you say it, but when you think of the Steelers and the Ravens, you affiliate them with Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh because they somewhat have become the face of the franchise. And most of the casual fans that follow the NFL, they don't know too much about the head coaches. But everybody knows John Harbaugh. Everybody knows Mike Tomlin because they're the 2 longest tenured coaches in the NFL. And they more than likely will get another crack at being a head coach. As soon as they get fired, there'll probably be a bunch of teams lined up to get them because these are future Hall of Fame coaches. But it's just that their system has just got stale. And they're not able to reach the expectations that they created for their organizations with what they did earlier in their careers. And I believe we're about to see some really big changes in the AFC North when it comes to who's coaching on the sidelines for 3 out of 4 of these teams. The Bengals, the Ravens, the Steelers will all be on the market for a new head coach at the start of 2026 because it's just time for some big changes. The Bengals have regressed ever since they went to the Super Bowl and they lost to the Rams. Zach Taylor can't get the defense right. They struggle to win close games. The Ravens and the Steelers are just underperforming in the postseason. Different reasons. The Steelers can't win a playoff game, and the Ravens can't maximize having the most talented quarterback in NFL history. So don't be shocked if you see 3 teams in the AFC North looking for new head coaches at the start of next year, because I think that it's more than likely on the cusp of happening. One of the best words of advice that I have ever been told in my life has been, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. You got to know when to keep your hand and when to throw your hand away and call it a game. And that's the exact situation that the Minnesota Vikings find themselves in with JJ McCarthy. Now, you hear this very often. Oh, you got to give a young quarterback time to develop. Sometimes it doesn't take you long to figure out that the guy you have at quarterback just isn't it. And when you watch JJ McCarthy play, you see a guy who isn't even good enough to be a backup quarterback in the NFL. And just because you go to a great situation on an already made team with a great offensive minded coach doesn't guarantee that you are going to succeed in the NFL at quarterback. There's a lot that goes in to having success in this league. And a lot of it isn't tied to how good of a team you're on. You believe that a rookie quarterback can't fail if they're on a team that has one of the greatest wide receivers in NFL history, one of the best offensive minds in the game, and a great defense. But look at what happened with Trey Lance with the 49ers. And look at what's happening with JJ McCarthy right now. JJ McCarthy never should have been a first-round pick. The Vikings reached for him because we're in a quarterback-driven league. So you see this oversaturation at quarterback to where teams just feel even if a guy isn't a first-round caliber quarterback, they still got to go ahead and draft them just because they have FOMO. They have fear of missing out. If this guy ends up being at least above average, then we could find ourselves asked out. And the Vikings weren't in a situation where they had to invest a first-round pick on a quarterback. They had Sam Darnold. They also had Daniel Jones in the building last year. And you end up getting rid of those guys because you wanted a cheaper option. You wanted to be able to maximize the benefits that comes with having a good rookie quarterback on a cheap deal because it would allow you to build up the rest of the team to the point when even if JJ McCarthy wasn't that great, if he was just okay, the roster will be enough to carry him. But that hasn't been how this situation has played out for the Vikings. Instead, you have a team that's built to win, that's being held back by a quarterback that simply should be playing in a UFL right now. JJ McCarthy is not an NFL quarterback. He has a decent arm. He's an okay athlete, but he just doesn't have it in between here. He doesn't have it up here mentally. And even though it takes a few years for quarterbacks to develop, when you're on a team that expects to win, when you have guys like Justin Jefferson, who has played with guys like Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold, and now you're telling him that he has to be patient, he has to be okay with losing because he has a young quarterback, you're doing your locker room, you're doing your team a disservice. Guys on Minnesota expected to be in the Super Bowl conversation. This is a team that last year was competing for the 1 seed that won 14 games. And now you go from that to being one of the worst teams in the NFC this year because of your team whiffing that quarterback. And you can't expect guys in the locker room like Justin Jefferson to be patient. This is a production-based business. You either can go out there and make the plays, you either can go out there and make the necessary passes, or you can't. And it's black and white. It's simple as that. And JJ McCarthy can't get it done. And he's not going to get any better. Look at what we've seen out of Dillon Gabriel. It didn't take the Browns long to go away from him to Shedeur Sanders because they knew Dillon Gabriel didn't have what it took to be a starter in this league. And you don't need 2 seasons to know that JJ McCarthy doesn't have it as a starting quarterback in the NFL. If you've ever played football before, the first day you go to tryouts and you start doing your individual drills, you start doing your 7-on-7s, pretty quickly you can figure out the guys who are going to be starters, the guys who are going to be some of the best players on your team, the guys who are going to be riding the bench, the guys who are going to be role players, and the guys who are going to end up being on the chopping block. Same thing goes for the NFL. In the NFL, within your first 6 games, if you don't show any promise, you already know what you are as a player. You already know what you have in that player as a head coach. Now, sometimes you have late bloomers like Sam Darnold, Alex Smith, Daniel Jones, but even all of those guys shown flashes. Even Sam Darnold had some moments, had some games with the New York Jets where you say, yeah, okay, I see the vision. You don't have too many moments out of JJ McCarthy outside of him showing up in the last 3 minutes of the game. That's about it. It's a 60-minute game. And for the first 45 minutes, JJ McCarthy stinks it up. And you don't need to see any more out of this dude to know that this dude is a bust. JJ McCarthy was never the guy at Michigan. He was a bona fide handoff merchant. But Kevin O'Connell thought that, okay, I'm such a great offensive mind. If I was able to resurrect Sam Darnold, I can develop J.J. McCarthy, a handoff merchant, into a franchise quarterback. And he was wrong. Same thing with Kyle Shanahan. He thought he could do the same thing with Trey Lance. Sometimes a quarterback's success isn't always about his situation. Sometimes it's about the intangibles. And J.J. McCarthy doesn't have the intangibles. He's not good under pressure. He's not a quarterback that you say, yeah, go throw the football 30, 40 times and carry us to a win. He never did it at Michigan. J.J. McCarthy, one game when he played against Penn State, they ran the ball 30 straight times. Why? Because they didn't believe in him. It's no shocker that J.J. McCarthy has struggled the way that he has, because he didn't show anything at Michigan to justify him being a first-round pick. And his upside isn't really that high. If J.J. McCarthy, let's say he does end up turning around and he reaches his potential, he's not better than Caleb Williams. He's not better than Jaden Daniels. Hell, he's not even better than Jalen Hurts, Jackson Dart, Brock Purdy. So the ceiling was already incredibly limited and the floor was already extremely low. This is what happens when you overdraft a quarterback for the sake of having the fear of missing out due to the quarterback oversaturation that the NFL has seen over these last couple of years. I can understand the Colts gambling on Anthony Richardson in the top 5 because of the elite traits, the elite arm, the 1% arm strength, the 1% athleticism. I understand that. I don't give the Colts too much flack for taking that gamble. But the Minnesota Vikings, on the other hand, though, they overdrafted a guy that at best was a 3rd or 4th round pick. And when you whiff on quarterback, it's supposed to set your team back 5 years. The Minnesota Vikings aren't in that kind of situation, though. If they end up moving on from J.J. McCarthy right now, they cut their losses, you still have a good enough team that you can salvage whiffing on a quarterback. Kevin O'Connell has already built up enough goodwill that he's not going to get fired for getting it wrong at quarterback. Because everybody knows what Kevin O'Connell is capable of. And we know that he's being held back. He's being handcuffed. He's being handicapped because he has a quarterback that doesn't belong as a starter in the NFL. And you can say I'm being harsh, but when Dylan Gabriel was out there struggling, everybody was ready to get rid of him. You don't need 4 times for somebody in life to show you what they already showed you once. And what we've seen out of J.J. McCarthy is that he just doesn't have it as a starting quarterback in this league. It was pretty obvious that Jamarcus Russell couldn't play in the NFL. It was pretty obvious that Zach Wilson didn't have that as a starter. It was pretty obvious that Trey Lance didn't have it. Sometimes it's just very early, but you can tell if a guy has it or not. Like Cam Ward, he's been struggling this year. The Titans have absolutely been awful. But when you look at Cam Ward against some of the best defenses in the NFL, the Denver Broncos, the Seattle Seahawks, you see throws that a lot of quarterbacks in this league don't have the ability to make. You see him make plays that only a handful of guys have the talent to pull off. You see moments of, okay, I can see why the Titans drafted him first overall. Outside of a few late game fluke heroics out of JJ McCarthy, I just don't see it, and I never saw it at Michigan. They were better off taking Bo Nix instead of JJ McCarthy. It's so ironic how everybody was dumping on Sean Payton for drafting Bo Nix in the first round, saying he wasn't a first-round caliber quarterback, but everybody was singing the Vikings' praises for drafting J.J. McCarthy because of Kevin O'Connell and the job that he did with Sam Darnold. And now look what's transpired. Bo Nix has had way more starts, way more experience than what J.J. McCarthy had coming out of college. Bo Nix was one of the best quarterbacks coming out of his high school recruiting class. The brother won at Auburn. He won at Oregon. J.J. McCarthy was asked to just hand the football off 40, 50 times a game and don't lose us the contest when we do ask you to pass. The one time in college when J.J. McCarthy was asked to put a team on his back, they got upset in the first round of the playoffs by TCU, who Georgia proceeded to put a 60-70 burger on in the national championship. When I saw J.J. McCarthy's performance and Michigan's upset loss against TCU, that's when I realized that J.J. McCarthy was not going to be a good NFL quarterback. Because when you put the ball in his hands and you ask him to be a franchise quarterback and win you the game, he can't get it done. He makes bad decisions. He gets scared on the pressure. He just isn't it. You got to know when to hold him and know when to fold him. And the Vikings, they need to clean their hand, ask for the dealer to reshuffle the deck, and give them a new hand. Just when you thought you were seeing the end to one dynasty, a new dynasty is starting to be formed, and that is the Los Angeles Rams. Is it fair to say that Sean McVay is going to become the greatest coach in NFL history? He's on pace for winning his second Super Bowl, and on top of that, he has one of the youngest rosters in the NFL. Outside of Matthew Stafford and Devontae Adams, the majority of the Rams' best players are very young, and they haven't even entered the primes of their career. Jared Verse, Byron Young, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, the list goes on and on and on with how great of a coach Sean McVay is and how great this young Rams team is as well. I don't think it's far-fetched to say that Sean McVay can't be the greatest head coach in NFL history. He could very well go on to win 6-7 Super Bowls. Unlike Andy Reid, who's up there in age, he won't be able to have the longevity that Sean McVay is going to have in this league. And on top of that, Sean McVay also, I would say, has been a lot better as of late in comparison to Andy Reid, in spite of Andy Reid having the quarterback advantage. Matthew Stafford, when he ends up retiring, the Rams are going to end up having a seamless transition with them being blessed with the Falcons' first-round pick this year, which could end up being Fernando Mendoza or whoever is one of the top quarterbacks coming out in next year's draft. And if they don't want to draft the quarterback next year, they could end up trading away that draft pick to get whoever's the top quarterback in next year's draft class, because the Rams are a great organization. They do a fantastic job of scouting, a fantastic job of player evaluation and player development. And when you compare the Los Angeles Rams to the Philadelphia Eagles, the Eagles have too many years when they whiff on their coordinator hires and they end up missing out on the opportunity for winning the Super Bowl due to that. The Rams don't have misses on their coaching staff because their success is ultimately tied to Sean McVay due to him being the one who calls the plays. So the team's success is largely on the shoulders of Sean McVay compared to the Philadelphia Eagles, where the success is largely coming down to their ability to nail their coordinator hires. And you look at the landscape of the NFC right now, there really is no legitimate threat to stopping the Rams from being able to become the new dynasty of the NFL outside of the occasional years when the Eagles get the right guys calling the plays, when you have the Seattle Seahawks with the rise of Mike McDonald bringing back defense in the league, showing that defensive-minded coaches can still have a lot of success in this league. There'll be a few years when the Seahawks get one up on the Rams, but Sean McVay can still coach for another 2-3 decades, and it's a numbers game. And since he's going to have so much longevity with the success that he has already had so early into his coaching career, I don't think that it's unimaginable to see Sean McVay going down as the greatest head coach in NFL history. With how great this roster is, there's not too many teams that are going to be able to top this. And what's scary is that the Rams are only going to continue to get better. When your team is already this good, when you go into the draft, you're not drafting for team needs anymore. You can just go best player available. So you already have a great team with a bunch of guys on rookie deals, and you can keep stacking that talent to where it's nearly impossible for you to not be anywhere short of making it to the NFC Championship game every single year. It's kind of a situation where the rich only get richer when it comes to the Los Angeles Rams. And initially, when they won their first Super Bowl under Sean McVay, they did it mainly building that team through aggressive trades, spending a lot of money in free agency. Then they had a few down years when they had to rebuild. And now look at how fast they've overturned this team. You went from having a team that was very expensive, that you had to make a lot of aggressive investments in, to now having one of the cheaper rosters in the NFL. The Rams have a top 3 defense, a top 5 defense in the league right now, and it's one of the most inexpensive defenses in the National Football League. So imagine what this team looks like 2-3 years from now. Even if you do have to break the bank to pair a Jared Verse or to end up having to pay a guy like Puka Nacua, you draft so well that you can offset those big contracts. It's kind of similar to the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens, if they had a Sean McVay as their head coach, they would be in the same exact situation, but they don't. And the Rams, with how great they are at putting together a good team compared to, Harry Roseman, who does a really good job, but he's not the coach. He's not the guy who's pulling the strings when it comes to getting the coordinator hires right. And I would even say that the Rams have done a better job of constructing their team than what Harry Roseman has the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles have a stat team, no doubt about that, but they still do have a few holes on that roster, and there are a few misses that Harry Roseman has had, although not a lot of them. He has had his fair share of misses. The Rams, they haven't really missed that much yet, and they took a guy in Emmanuel Forbes, who was viewed as one of the biggest busts in recent memory, who was a stick figure when he got cut by the Washington Commanders, and a few years later, they've rehabilitated this dude, and now he looks like a competent starting corner. So now you can turn guys that maybe were cast-offs, and with the greatness of Sean McVay, he can turn them into serviceable players. Bill Belichick had this same ability. He had the ability to take players that were underdrafted, that people overlook, players that were overlooked on the free agency market, and turn them into good players because of the scheme, because of the system. You plug anybody in the Sean McVay system, they're going to produce. I look at the Los Angeles Rams right now as the new dynasty that will rise in the NFL when the Chiefs end up going on a little bit of a hiatus. Not saying that the Chiefs won't be back in the Super Bowl, but like we saw with the Patriots had a little 9-10 year stretch when they didn't make it to the Super Bowl. They were coming up short in the playoffs. You can only dominate the league for so long until somebody else ends up catching up to you. The rest of the league catches up as well, and you end up having to go through a little bit of a period where you have to kind of just suck in and accept the fact that your time is up for the moment. And the Rams' time is now. And eventually we will see the Chiefs and the Rams square off in the Super Bowl. It could be this year because I'm not writing off Kansas City, but the Rams have the highest point differential in the NFL. By the time the Rams get to halftime, the game is already over. They can kick their feet back and start focusing on next week. Now, obviously, they're not doing that because it's a 60-minute game and you have to play until the final whistle blows. But the Rams are just clearly on a collision course to winning the NFC and winning another Super Bowl. Outside of the Denver Broncos, there's not another team right now that's playing better football than what the Rams are, that has the team that can compete with the squad that the Rams have put together. The Rams have a complete offense. They have injuries on their offensive line, and you couldn't even tell with how their offense was just flawlessly going up and down the field on a Buccaneers defense that has been pretty solid this year. Todd Bowles is a respective defensive-minded coach, and yet he couldn't find any way to get the Rams offense off the field on Sunday Night Football. When you consider the young talent that the Rams have, the amount of draft capital that they still have, the cap space that they're going to have, the still spending free agency, this team, they're already good now. They're not even close to maxing out their full potential. They can have all-pro guys on every single position, and that will be better than the Philadelphia Eagles right now. They could have guys that get injured, and a guy coming off the bench is a Pro Bowl level player. They have so much draft capital, so much cap space. They have such a big margin for error. How can you not see the Rams going on a run where they rattle off 2, 3, 4, and 5 Super Bowls within the next decade? I think it's very possible, especially with them having that pick that they got blessed from the Atlanta Falcons with that could turn into Matthew Stafford's successor. I will be shocked if Sean McVay doesn't go down as the greatest head coach in the NFL. I think that he just has so much longevity in this league that with the pace that he's on right now, let's say if he does win his second Super Bowl, if he wins 2 Super Bowls every decade for the next 3 years, he'll retire with 6. He'll be in the conversation with Bill Belichick. Now, we've shitted on the Dallas Cowboys for a very long time, and for very good reasons, because Jerry Jones has made a lot of bad decisions that has held this franchise back from winning another Super Bowl. But this year, though, Jerry Jones has been in his absolute bag. He wants to win another Super Bowl before he dies, and he has taken accountability for the Dallas Cowboys shortcomings that they've had over these last couple of years, and he's doing everything in his power to make it right. Look at the trades that the Cowboys have made this year, with them getting rid of Michael Parsons, flipping him for 2 first-round picks, and getting Kenny Clark, then using one of those first-round picks to go and get Quentin Williams, one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league. You trade for a solid starting linebacker and Logan Wilson. You traded for George Pickens, and one of the biggest finesses in NFL history. As a diehard Steelers fan, I'm still sick to my stomach that we got rid of George Pickens. And I understand that the captains on the team, guys like Cam Hayward and TJ Watt, they were done with George Pickens, coming to meetings late, coming to games late. But him going to the Cowboys was just a perfect culture fit for him, because the Cowboys have been notoriously known for taking guys that have a little bit of history being troublemakers at their previous stops, rehabilitating them and getting a lot out of them. Look at how much they got out of Terrell Owens. Look at how good Des Bryant was in his peak. So it's no shocker to me as a Steeler fan to see George Pickens balling out the way that he is. I was arguing back and forth with Steeler fans all offseason when they were calling him overrated. Oh, he doesn't do anything underneath. Oh, he's not a great route runner. George Pickens is a dog. And he's showing that. He was a dog at Georgia, even though he has a few moments when he may lose his cool. When you have a guy in CeeDee Lamb that's able to take a guy like George Pickens, wrap his arm around him and say, man, you finna be my homie. You know, it's easy to see why George Pickens has been so successful with the Dallas Cowboys on top of playing with the best quarterback that he has played with up to this point in his career. He was still getting over 1,000 yards with Mason Rudolph, Mitchell Trubisky, and Kenny Two Small Hands Pickett throwing him the football. So imagine what he would do with a guy in Dak Prescott who throughout the entirety of his career has been a top 10 quarterback. You can argue if he's been top 5 or elite quarterback, but we all know that Dak Prescott is one of the most consistent quarterbacks that you can find in this league when it comes to getting routinely good quarterback play throughout the regular season. Not only has Jerry Jones made some very good trades, but the Cowboys have been exceptional at building their team through the draft. The majority of their best players, where did they come from? The draft. Their entire offensive line, which has been playing at a top 5 level this year, was built entirely through the draft. Same thing with their defense. DeRon Bland, Trayvon Diggs. The majority of their best players on that side of the football, they got through the draft. Donovan Azaraku, who was an All-American coming out of Boston College. I thought he should have been a first-round pick. He's going to be an absolute menace coming off the edge for the next 3-5 years for the Cowboys. What about that linebacker coming off that season-ending injury? Demarion Overshaw. He was a dog at Texas. They drafted him. The Cowboys are a very good team when it comes to assembling their team through the draft. And Jerry Jones has made the moves that we all criticize him for not making in years past, not being aggressive, not being willing to spend in free agency. But it seems like we were all wrong about Jerry Jones. You know, we thought that the Dallas Cowboys messed up not drafting a running back high, not getting one of the better running backs in free agency, and Javonte Williams, who's been one of the most productive running backs in the league, quietly should end up being the winner of Comeback Player of the Year. Everybody's talking about Aiden Hutchinson winning Comeback Player of the Year, Daniel Jones. What about Javonte Williams? If he never had the injuries that he had early in his career with the Broncos, he would easily be a top 5 running back in the game. The Dallas Cowboys, as easy and as fun as it is to shit on this team, I think their Super Bowl window is as wide as it's ever been over the last 2 decades, these next 2 to 3 years. They've done an incredible job of building their team up through the draft. They've hit on some very underrated free agency pickups, which is one thing that every Super Bowl team has done in the past. And I think that Brian Schottenheimer is a pretty good coach. His dad is Marty Schottenheimer, who was also a really good coach throughout his time. The only thing with Marty was that he was unable to get it done in the playoffs. Brian Schottenheimer, on the other hand, could be able to maybe get the Cowboys over the hump. It's kind of a situation where you have the Philadelphia Eagles light. The Cowboys have as good as a roster as anybody else in the NFL. I mean, what position can you point to on the Cowboys roster and say, yeah, that's a major hole? Their defense has greatly improved since they made the trade for Quinnen Williams. And now you pair him up with Kenny Clark. For the next 2-3 years, your defensive line is going to be set. You got Donovan Azaraku, who has the ability to be a consistent 9-sack guy or better for you. I don't think that the Cowboys have ever had as golden as an opportunity as what they currently have over these next 2-3 years to win Jerry Jones another Super Bowl before he ends up passing away. And Jerry Jones has said that he would love to hoist that Lombardi trophy one last time. And It's hard for guys like Jerry Jones who have had success in the past to come out and publicly say that, I'm responsible for this. When they lost to the Arizona Cardinals, Jerry Jones couldn't blame anybody on the team. He couldn't blame any of his players. He couldn't blame Brian Schottenheimer because he was responsible for that team that you saw on the field in that game. And that's the moment when Jerry Jones had to look at himself in the mirror and say, you know what? I have to be better. This is on me. If I'm going to be the owner and I'm also going to be the guy pulling the strings, I have to be a lot better. And what did he do to make up for that? He got Quentin Williams. You get Logan Wilson. You won the Michael Parsons trade. Michael Parsons is a great player. He's had a very good season for the Green Bay Packers, but Jerry Jones had a point. We weren't winning anything of note with Michael Parsons. So what's really the difference between us having and not having him, especially when we have studs like Donovan Nazaraku, we draft well, and we develop very well? Jerry Jones has finally gone all in. And I expect him to be even more aggressive with him publicly coming out and saying, I know that the time that I have left on this earth, my days are numbered. So I have to be a lot better. I have to be a lot more aggressive. I have to be a lot smarter with how I go about building up this team with the raw decisions that I make. Because I don't have any more days to waste. I don't have any more breaths to waste making bad decisions. And he will pay George Pickens. He won't drag that out. I promise you he won't drag that out. Jerry Jones has learned. As stubborn as what he is, he's very smart. You don't end up having the most valuable franchise in all the sports if you were just an idiot. Jerry Jones is just stubborn because success can make people stubborn. Sometimes people can become such a prisoner of their success that it blinds them with certain decision making. It kind of messes up their ability to decipher what's a good decision, what's a bad decision, because what was a good decision 20 years ago, 30 years ago when the Cowboys were winning, could be a bad decision today because the league has changed. The league has evolved. And Jerry Jones has kind of been stubborn to evolve with it. But now, I think with how good this Cowboys team looks, I can see them winning another Super Bowl within these next 2-3 years. And I know it sounds outrageous to say that, but eventually the Cowboys are going to have to get over the hump at least one of these years. And I think Jerry Jones is fully putting the full court press on finally making sure that the Cowboys can get back to the level that we all think of when we bring up America's team, when you talk about the history of this franchise.